terrifying me. You can see the little ducklings are now cleaning themselves.
They are very, very cute. I think they are so sweet. I think those ones there at Juma Dam, I think there were 7 of them, and they went missing and overnight. So it just shows you that one day you can see all of them here, the next day they completely disappear. And I don't know if they went to another watering hole, but yeah, it was 7 of them just disappeared. But yeah, that's a circle of life, and but they are cute. These ones are really, really adorable. They're at that age where you can just view them all day and just enjoy the activity with the parents.
So I actually think the success rate with the parenting is better in the Western Cape, what I've been reading about, which is very interesting. The ducklings are preening themselves, and Cedric was talking about how, the ducklings are sometimes chased into the water, and these ducklings are born ready for that. I think it's only about 6 hours after they've hatched will they start actually leaving the nest and heading out, and they can swim pretty much straight away. So we've been watching these ducklings, I believe, for about a week now that we've had them. I think we saw them on Earth Day. It's one of the first days that we spotted them. And to me, it doesn't seem that they've grown all that much. They look the same size to me. But certainly the life experience that they've developed in these 7 days must be exponential. They've been bashed by waves. They've experienced penguins and gulls. And they're all huddling up now, which is really cute. We've got a couple of the ducklings who are not in the huddle. So Cedric counted 8, and when we first had them on the show, we actually counted 8. I think it was Honey Badger who told us it was 9, and Honey Badger called them the Shellies. Very interesting question, Darkmane Lover. So, Cedric, Darkmane Lover wants to know if you would ever trade in your bush skills and become a marine guide.
Darkmane Lover, good afternoon. Thank you so much for joining us here on WildEarth, this here at Penguin Beach. Would I ever change my my side here at Juma Game Reserve or the bush side for marine? Darkmane Lover, to be honest, I'll be frank with you. No, I think I enjoy the bush life. See, I was brought up in the bush. I was brought up in that area all my life, so I know that area. I just love the activity of different kind of animals there that we do have, the variety and all that. But then again, on top of that, on the other side of the coin, you must understand, like Jax, I know that she's really much been brought more up in an area for marine stuff. So it's good that you all got the different kind of loves for different sides of these, the diversity of fauna and flora. I think it's very important. So some of us can really get into the marine sides, and some of us can get more into the safari, in the vegetation, savanna woodlands kind of aspects. But no, I think I'll miss the Juma clan too much. Not talking about the crew at the camp, but I'll talk about the Hyena clan. But yes, I'm very happy to see, just to take a look at this and just to see the differences that we do have here in South Africa. And as I said, the diversity is amazing, really, really incredible. And I'm very privileged to say that we can, go from the coastal side, have this beauty, to go into the, Greater Kruger Park area.
Hello, Penguin Beaches. Good afternoon. I'm so sorry that we had to wait a little bit to go live. In the Overberg, we have this very quaint thing where if the wind blows, the signal drops. But we are so happy to be live with you down here at Penguin Beach. My name is Jax. I'm going to be your naturalist. Jason is behind the camera. And we have some African penguins to show you down here in the left wing. So we are a live show, so please send us in your comments and questions. You can do that on YouTube, you can do that on our website, you can use the hashtag WildEarth on Twitter, and if you're under the age of 18, send us an email at kidsquestions@wildearth.tv. I'm so glad we do get to be with you today. It always makes me so sad when we do struggle to get to you. But the wind is blowing and blowing today with this northwesterly gale. And the northwesterly gale seems to be the most dangerous wind in all of the Cape. On this day, back in the 1700s, there were 9 ships that wrecked on a single day in a single storm. They were attached to their moorings in Cape Town Harbour, and then they became detached. So mooring is essentially a thing to hold a ship in place. You can see we have no ships out on the water today, just penguins waddling back from the sea to the nesting area. But let's go have a look at the official weather report and see what they say is in store today. So what I want us to go and have a look at are these penguins who are all coming back in from the ocean. So there's this little channel that we have to the left of us, and there's a couple of penguins who are enjoying the low tide and sitting on rocks they would never usually sit on. And then a couple of them are making their way along the pathway. So it seems that the fishing might have been good this morning and that they're able to come back nice and early to the nests. Oh, that one penguin took a bit of a tumble into the water. They're so cute when they jump in. And it is a very quiet day down here at Stony Point. Many of our birds are sleeping. It's the kind of day you have no idea what might be in store for us. So we'll watch these 2 penguins coming back in from the sea.
Long misunderstood as dim-witted, gluttonous scavengers, the hyena over the years has had a serious PR crisis on its paws. Here at WildEarth, our beloved Djuma clan has allowed us a chance to set the record straight.
We're sitting here with the Djuma clan.
So now it's time to honor this critical animal and join our hyena hullabaloo. Trishana Naidu, a self-confessed hyena lover, will be leading the celebrations, culminating in a chance to name Ribbon's new cubs.
Seem to be going out to sea. Samito, so you're saying that we should put our flippers in the air and wave them like we don't care. And we've had this comment 2 days in a row, so I feel like we're trying to change the Penguin Beach slogan from waddle ready to flippers in the air don't care. I really like waddle ready. I think these penguins really are embodying it now as they rock on along the shoreline. But I do love the puns that everyone comes up with and the little sayings that we get down here at Penguin Beach. I saw one the other day. It was one of the comments saying, "See you on the flipper side," and I thought that was absolutely brilliant. Honey Badger, it is always so wonderful to have you and your very insightful questions on the show. So we're going to try our best to give you a penguin overload. The seashore is quiet today, but you never know. We might have some more penguins coming in as the show progresses. Looks like we've got a few who still have to make their way towards the left wing. And they're just slowly climbing out of the water and onto the rocks. So I think the question of whether penguins feed in storms or not is answered, because today is very stormy. It doesn't seem like it because the wind is blowing from behind us, but this is a very strong sea today. And so I think penguins will go out and feed in whatever weather. I think maybe energetically it might cost them more, so they might be exerting more effort to swim against the strong waters. And it's cool to see these penguins enjoying the low tide and enjoying the rocks that they wouldn't typically get to enjoy with our normal tide. So we're just a couple of days after our spring tide, our spring low. And I do feel that sometimes the further away they can be from the land, if they can just sit on the outer rocks, the more comfortable they are. Penguins only started to live on the mainland of Africa back in the 1980s with the establishment of Stony Point and then Boulders Beach. Historically, penguins are island birds, so they didn't have any land predators. They would breed inside their own guano. But life changes and things change, and since the 1980s, these penguins have called Stony Point their home. I think they're a very welcome addition to the area, certainly for things like the oyster catchers who've enjoyed the penguins making this the perfect environment for limpets by fertilizing the seaweeds with guano. And so the tide is dictated by the moon and to a lesser extent the sun. So when we have a full and a new moon, we have our spring tides, because the gravitational pull of the moon is more at that time, and so it causes the high tides to bulge in the direction of the moon and have the complete opposite but equal effect on the other side, or sorry, equal effect, not opposite effect. And then where the moon is not, you would have the low tides. I thought I heard a little animal squealing, but it is in fact a very excited child running past us. So you might start to hear that in just a moment. So we've got penguins hopping out of puddles.
Seven of our favourite furballs are ready to rumble and receive names as members of the Djuma clan. And who better to name these cubs than you? This is Heart's cub, adventurous and brave, and daughter to one of our most loved mothers. Is her name Moya? meaning wind or soul, for that adventurous side? Is it Shiluva, meaning flower, for her growth? Or is it Mbilo, meaning heart, as heart's daughter with a heart on her side? Head over to our website to cast your vote. 7 of our favorite furballs are ready to rumble and receive names as members of the Djuma clan. And who better to name these cubs than you? This is Corky's cub, the boldest and proudest of the group. Is their name Koa, showing boldness, fearlessness, and bravery? Is it Kalula, as the energetic and speedy one? Or is it Zunani, the leader? Head over to our website to cast your vote.
What I think we might do though, I think we might move over to Yellow Socks, who is in the very low tidal pools, looking out for a stranded clipfish or two. Tina, thank you for checking in on that penguin. So I did let Gavin know about that injured African penguin, and Gavin says he is going to keep a lookout for it. So we lost it yesterday, but we do know that it came in from Jacuzzi. He says it might still be in that area. And he says that it is likely that that foot is broken. I think it's a very fixable thing, quite luckily. And so we will we'll have to see if we get an update on that penguin. I will let you know. We pass by Gavin all the time because we're up and down the colony, and so is he. I did let him know, though, that penguin was also in very good condition. So if that is a recent injury, then that penguin is still fairly okay. He's nice and fat. But Gavin was walking around the colony this morning. So if he did pick up that any birds were in distress or injured or not looking in good condition, then they are very likely to find that penguin and be able to take it to Sandcob for rehabilitation. So I've not seen Yellow Socks, the little egret, manage to catch anything yet. It's certainly having a look. And I must admit, we're not seeing that many, we're not having that many oyster catcher sightings in this intertidal zone recently. I think when I first started, there was oyster catchers almost all the time. And Jason's nodding his head in agreement. Darkman Lover, so such a cool question. Do we get small earthquakes? Earthquakes are not a thing, but earthquakes are in Stony Point. And in South Africa, we do occasionally get earth tremors. I wouldn't call it an earthquake, but South Africans as a nation were quite dramatic in the best possible way. And so whenever there are such tremors, what tends to happen is that you'll go onto social media and people will make quite a big fuss over these things. They'll have a knocked over lawn chair and say that was the result of the tremor. I think there was a tremor a couple of years ago in this area, but what I'll do, Darkman Lovers, I'll go have a look and see if I can find anything on it, the most recent tremor in the area. But there's been nothing since I've lived here in 6 years where you've noticed that there's been a bit of an upset, a bit of a any sort of movement in the water. We're quite lucky in that we are not on a fault line. So Cape Town lies fairly far away from these tectonic plate lines, which is often where you'll find the trouble with quakes. There was, actually thinking about it now, there was an earthquake somewhere, I think last year, and people were saying that the high seas here were as a result of that, but I don't think that was ever actually confirmed. And I think the human mind is designed to try to make sense of things. Let's go have a look and see what else we can find. Let's go take a wider view of Stony Point. Let's show you the sea and show you all the white horses that we have as a result of that wind today. And we do have a show and shell view just a bit later on.
7 of our favorite furballs are ready to rumble and receive names as members of the Djuma clan. And who better to name these cubs than you? This is Ntima's first cub, and they're turning out to be quite the handful. Is their name Loki, after the Norse god of mischief and trickery? Is it Hlongavi, the one who can't be tamed? Or is it Shihleko, full of giggles? Head over to our website to cast your vote.
The Safari Guide of the Year 2022 is approaching us rapidly. This year, we'll be heading to Bushwise Field Guides at the Southern African Wildlife College from the 27th June till the 2nd of July. We will soon meet all our contestants who are vying for the prize of being the very best of the best, and the judges who will put them through their paces. Join me, Steve Falconbridge, as we dream it, guide it, win it.
So I think what we'll do now is we might actually do that show and shell. So sorry, I've got a bit of a scratch in my throat. And the show and shell today is an interesting one that I found on the seashore. Doris has a question for us. Doris, that's a good question. So African penguins don't usually travel all that far from the water. You're asking how far they might go. 1 kilometer would be a lot. 2 kilometers would be considerable. I think it would be very unlikely for them to go that far. I think a kilometer is very much enough because these are oceanic birds. They feel safer in the water. And so with the nesting, you'd only really see them go about a kilometer or so away. So I was hoping to show you the bird whose, not shell, but skeleton I have to show you today. So I found the other day a skull of what I think is a cormorant. I'm actually pretty sure it's a cormorant, although I'm not entirely sure what species. So you can have a look and see. And you can see this skull is fairly fresh. It still has a bit of feather on it. But what I want you to have a look at is actually how big the eye socket is on the skull of this bird. And the eyes don't look all that big when we look at the eyes of birds, but you'll see that most bird skulls have these massive, massive orbits or spaces where the eye will sit. And birds apparently can see a lot better than us. It's believed that they might even be able to see magnetic fields. You can also have a look at the beak or the bill. You can see it's fairly sharp. And this was washed up in between the kelp, so it's likely that this bird might have died out at sea and that its body ended up washing to shore and that the kelp actually entrapped it. So that is our show and shell. You can see on the other side there's still some feather left on this bird. And I'm not going to keep the skull. In South Africa, you're actually not allowed to own any part of a seabird because they are under protection. So I'm going to return this back to the soil. Cynthia, these skulls are really interesting. I think we're going to head back to the ocean now, but it's always fascinating to find bits of bone and shell and trying to figure out what animal it's from and how the animal might have ended up in the situation that it's in. So we've got those 4 species of cormorant, and for whatever reason I just feel that that might be a Cape cormorant that had washed up. We've got a little penguin who is alone on the beach and very aware. Beamer Smith, I love your question. You are asking what is the most misunderstood thing about African penguins? And I think from a human perspective, the fact that although they are extremely cute, penguins are pretty dangerous. So if you have a look at that penguin, that beak doesn't look like it can pack a punch, but if that penguin bites you, you will get stitches. If you look at the flippers of a penguin, you think, oh, that's really adorable, but if they hit you with their flippers, they will bruise you. And so I think that we completely underestimate the fact that this is an apex predator that you're looking at. This penguin doesn't prove my point so wonderfully as it waddles clumsily and in a slightly confused manner along the seashore. But penguins are tough. And so I think people are quick to underestimate penguins. I'm very quick to give penguins as much space as possible, just to ensure that I am not the victim of that beak or those flippers.
If you would like to be a part of the team that shares the wildebeest migration in Kenya live on WildEarth, then we have some great news for you. There are a few places left to join our expeditions in August and September this year. You'll be staying in an exclusive tented camp with ensuite bedrooms nestled in the riverine woodlands of the Talek River. Head over to our website to book your bucket list experience today. WildEarth Expeditions. Travel with purpose. Does your dad watch WildEarth? Why not send him a special message on Father's Day? Possibly he's living elsewhere and you can connect through WildEarth. Or maybe he'll be sitting next to you on the sofa. Either way, show him you care by logging into our website and submitting your message, which we hope to relay on Safari Live. WildEarth, it's in your nature.
What I might actually point out, since the tide is so low and we can see it, if we have a look at the kelp forest, so I'm just going to point Jason in the direction of Betty's Bay. So have a look at this kelp forest and you'll see that you've got patches where the kelp is super thick, and then you've got these wide patches where there is no kelp. And that is the way that you can see where there is rock. So where there is no kelp, you're not going to have rock for kelp to attach to, so that is going to be a sandy bottomed area inside the kelp forest. And so wherever you see the kelp growing, there's rocky reef below. And those sandy areas is where you would have things like stingrays living. They love a sandy bottom. Those sandy areas is also the way that humans would navigate their boats through the channels and create natural harbors. So in the kelp forest, you've got lots of creatures that love to hide. And in those open areas, you would have animals that would live beneath the sand. Those open areas are quite dubious when you are snorkeling, because you don't feel very protected. I think a lot of people who get into the water and a lot of the animals here feel that kelp is safety, and without kelp you're very vulnerable. And we know that the penguins love to use the kelp forest to exit Stony Point without being detected by things like seals. You'll notice that when the tide is high, you don't see the kelp heads quite as obviously. But this kelp likes to grow at the surface, and for a couple of hours a day, the kelp is going to be exposed. The kelp heads or the fronds will be exposed by the low tide. You've got that wind gusting behind us, blowing onto the sea and onto the penguins. Let's go have a close look at the penguins in front of us and see if there's anything interesting to be found on them. I think most of them are just having a nice little nap. Chandre, I want to say bone and keratin. That's what I want to say. I just want to pick up that skull again, actually, for my own belief. Yes, so definitely bone. And then right at the end, I think that the bit that sort of enshields it might be a tough keratin, what do you call it? A sheath. A keratin sheath. Yes. That I find I need to look at things to be able to talk it through, and I'm so glad I've actually got the skull with me. So on this cormorant skull that I had a look at earlier, these beaks and bills seem quite dark when the birds are alive, but they lose that color. And Jules is saying she loves the way the penguins walk. So we've got lots of walking penguins coming your way, Jules. So there's lots to love on the seashore today. I adore it when they walk with their heads down. That's my favorite little move that they do, because I think that they look like they're going to go cause trouble somewhere.
Thought you had daddy issues? Well, think again. Not all dads in the wild have the most commendable parenting skills. Here at WildEarth, we've seen many fathers who will go to the end of the earth for their young. And also, tragically, the ones who'd rather just eat them for breakfast. In honor of Father's Day on the 19th of June, we're excited to welcome James Henry back to WildEarth to host a special Explorers Fireside Chat in honor of all the wild dads at Djuma.
7 of our favorite furballs are ready to rumble and receive names as members of the Djuma clan. And who better to name these cubs than you? This is Ntima's second born, and dare we say golden child, full of fun? Is their name Kira, the beam of light? Is it Kemba, meaning faithful in Norse? Or is it Mikateko, the blessed one? Head over to our website to cast your vote.
So we have these 2 penguins who've just arrived on the shore. Salt and pepper, I completely agree. I think that's probably my favorite thing to watch them do, actually, is hop out of the water. Maybe after the parents feeding the chicks. Because they always seem to be so... it's a very dramatic scene, I find, where they hop out the water and you can see them sort of struggling along the seashore, and then they stop and they'll preen themselves. But I also love to watch because it's often one penguin and then another penguin comes in. Because sometimes they do come in a nice big group, but they're actually quite sneaky, which you wouldn't think possible for a black and white bird. All these penguins are now preening in unison. Charles, so you're asking us if we have penguins with no spots on their tummies. And that's a very interesting question. I think it must be possible in theory. All the penguins that I'm looking at the moment have at least a couple of spots on their stomach. But because pigmentation and because color is so varied, it's very likely that there must be some that just have absolutely no little spots. And that in itself would be an identification feature, because that would be quite rare. So I'm looking at one penguin that has, from my angle, just a single spot. No, there's 2 spots. I'm sure it must be possible, and I think that that's actually rarer than just a couple of spots here and there. So with most of these penguins, it would be super difficult to identify individuals with just those little spots. And so what scientists will have to do is they actually have to put that through software, matching software. And some of those softwares are manual, so you have to go and click on the little things, the little spots and the little strange bits. In fact, a lot of that software, you'd think you just kind of upload the photo and it gives you matches. But a lot of it is actually super basic because there's not all that much money being spent on research. And so a lot of the programs are very old.
Long misunderstood as dim-witted, gluttonous scavengers, the hyena over the years has had a serious PR crisis on its paws. Here at WildEarth, our beloved Djuma clan has allowed us a chance to set the record straight.
We're sitting here with the Djuma clan.
So now it's time to honor this critical animal and join our hyena hullabaloo. Trishana Naidu, a self-confessed hyena lover, will be leading the celebrations, culminating in a chance to name Ribbon's new cubs.
The Overberg coast is very characterized by these rocks that we have. And it is a great place for seabirds to sit, which is why Cormorant Cove is such a popular spot for all species of cormorant that we have here. So these rocks make it very inaccessible to other predators and to humans back in the day. What I do love is how the birds have completely taken over the spot, which was the one of the whaling areas. So, and the guys would wait in there to see if the whaling boats would come back. And on so many islands around the world, in places where we used to have human infrastructure, when that infrastructure is abandoned, animals just seem to move in so quickly. And I think Arctic Circle asked me the other day if I believe that the oceans can recover. And I think just something like Cormorant Cove can show us that animals will repopulate and will recover areas that were once used by man if we give them the opportunity to. Hannah, so that's a very interesting question. Our largest, you're asking how large cormorants grow to, and our largest cormorant species would be our white-breasted cormorant. I think they weigh about 3 kilograms. Penguins also weigh about 3 kilograms, but penguins have very dense bones, where cormorants have very light bones because they need to fly. So I can't imagine they weigh more than about 3 kilograms or so. They're definitely taller than our African penguins. So I'd say they get to about 90 centimeters, but I don't have the exact measurement for you, so I will just have a look tonight and make double sure on that. But I think 90 centimeters would be our white-breasted cormorants. Our bank cormorants are also fairly tall, and I think that they might be just as heavy as your white-breasted cormorants. The bulkiest cormorant species that we have here.
Seven of our favourite furballs are ready to rumble and receive names as members of the Djuma clan. And who better to name these cubs than you? This is Ribbon's second born, with nicked ears and a softer heart full of adventure. Is their name Rangani, the adventurer? Is it Twela, the sensitive and empathetic one? Or is it Spirit, for that spirited soul we love so much? Head over to our website to cast your vote. 7 of our favorite furballs are ready to rumble and receive names as members of the Djuma clan. And who better to name these cubs than you? This is Ribbon's firstborn, distinct from their sibling by their full round ears and more curious nature. Is their name Matimba, meaning strength? Is it Shongela, the defender of the weak? Or is it Wiley, the crafty and cheeky one? Head over to our website to cast your vote.
I think all that the penguins want to do today is simply walk back to the nests. It's the only mission that we have on the seashore today. And the tide is fairly low at the moment, but we are going to be on low tide on Sunday, which is when we're going to do our intertidal show. Lana, they do look extremely smart in their black and white coloration. I think they're certainly the smartest looking animal that we'd have down here at Penguin Beach. I do wonder if penguins were different colors, if they would be as charismatic. Apparently early penguins, the very first penguins, were more brownish and reddish in color. But those black feathers are very hardy, which is in part why they have them on their back. You'll see that most of the penguin species in the world are a combination of black and white. Some of them have beautiful orange on them. Our African penguins have the pink above the eye, which we were discussing yesterday, and how long it might take for that to form. Now, our penguins look very similar to the Magellanic penguin of South America, and it's believed that all the penguin species, and there have been several that have found their way to South Africa over the years, originally came from South America. So I think we've got at least 4 extinct penguin species fossils that have been found in South Africa and off the coast of Africa. Apparently the movement of the currents created what one scientist called a penguin conveyor belt, where penguins would come from South America, they'd settle here. Looks like we've got some penguin politics starting along the shoreline. Couldn't have been peaceful for too long with African penguins. I feel like they need a bit of a fight in their lives.
The Safari Guide of the Year 2022 is approaching us rapidly. This year, we'll be heading to Bushwise Field Guides at the Southern African Wildlife College from the 27th June till the 2nd of July. We will soon meet all our contestants who are vying for the prize of being the very best of the best, and the judges who will put them through their paces. Join me, Steve Falconbridge, as we dream it, guide it, win it.
If you would like to be a part of the team that shares the wildebeest migration in Kenya live on WildEarth, then we have some great news for you. There are a few places left to join our expeditions in August and September this year. You'll be staying in an exclusive tented camp with ensuite bedrooms nestled in the riverine woodlands of the Talek River. Head over to our website to book your bucket list experience today. WildEarth Expeditions. Travel with purpose.
I think penguins are a very great example of taking breaks and how important it is, because you never see a penguin working hard for too long. They'll have a little bit of a walk and they'll stop and they'll take a break and then they'll walk again and they'll take another break. And even in the water, they will have fishing bouts. So when they are fishing, they'll go down and they'll take a couple of dives, they'll catch some fish, and then they'll relax at the surface of the water before carrying on with their hunt. Samuel, so that's a really good question. So you're asking what physical differences male and female penguins have. I believe that male penguins are slightly larger than your female penguins, although it's very difficult for us to see that standing where we are. And I believe that male penguins also have a deeper bill. So they've got a deeper bill depth, which is how they tell the difference between male and female penguins as scientists. So sometimes we can see that if we've got a male and a female sitting together. But it is quite hard anecdotally if you're standing here and you don't know who's male or who's female to be able to tell the difference. So there's very little sexual dimorphism. The sexual dimorphism is the fancy scientific term for differences between males and females. There are other differences in terms of their behavior, which I find quite interesting. So female birds tend to stay in shallow water. Male birds tend to dive a lot deeper.
Does your dad watch WildEarth? Why not send him a special message on Father's Day? Possibly he's living elsewhere and you can connect through WildEarth. Or maybe he'll be sitting next to you on the sofa. Either way, show him you care by logging into our website and submitting your message, which we hope to relay on Safari Live. WildEarth, it's in your nature. Thought you had daddy issues? Well, think again. Not all dads in the wild have the most commendable parenting skills. Here at WildEarth, we've seen many fathers who will go to the end of the earth for their young. And also, tragically, the ones who'd rather just eat them for breakfast. In honor of Father's Day on the 19th of June, we're excited to welcome James Henry back to WildEarth to host a special Explorers Fireside Chat in honor of all the wild dads at Djuma.
We've got one penguin who's moving through the other penguins. They seem to be a bit kind about him today. And we've got several more just arriving in drips and droves through that rocky section there. You can actually watch the wind on the water as it pushes the water backwards. So you can see the ripples that it's creating. Kim, that's an amazing question. So you're asking about organisms in the kelp, and you get quite literally thousands. So on the kelp itself, you could have little lace animals that looks like a mark of something. It almost looks like a coaster mark on a table, but it's actually a little animal. Ooh, lots of penguins coming in suddenly. You get your kelp limpets that live on the kelp. You get epiphytes, which are little plants that attach to the kelp and live on it. You will get clipfish who will often sit in between the fronds of the kelp, hiding from predators. And then inside the kelp forest itself, there are so many different creatures. You'll have sea fans, you'll have sponges, you'll have a variety of different fish species. You'll have octopus, your small shark species like your pajama sharks, your puff-adder shy sharks, your dark shy sharks will all live inside the kelp forest. And that is where you would find the most biodiversity along the Cape coast. So I've mentioned before that when you've got your sandy bottom, very few creatures will live because it's quite dangerous, you've got no protection. But most creatures will hide inside the kelp forest. And your predators will also move inside these kelp forests. So there's this old belief that great white sharks will not go into kelp, but there's video footage of great white sharks actually using kelp to evade seals. Seals love hunting in the kelp forest because lots of their food can be found there. You don't often see penguins hunting in kelp forests, but they say that the juveniles enjoy it because the fish in the kelp forest are a lot slower than sardine and anchovy, which are open ocean fish. So when juvenile penguins first go out to fish, they're very slow. The adults don't like them with the big groups because they slow down the hunt. So if juvenile penguins can find some fish along the reef systems.
7 of our favorite furballs are ready to rumble and receive names as members of the Djuma clan. And who better to name these cubs than you? This is Swazi's cub, our surprise wanderer. Is their name Saga, meaning story in Icelandic? Is it Matimu, for history made? Or is it Masingita, the surprise? Head over to our website to cast your vote.
WildEarth's Hyena Hullabaloo has arrived. And just to add to the hyena hysteria, we have launched some great new merchandise. Find the latest clothing items on the WildEarth shop and proclaim yourself part of the clan with designs like, I'm a fan of the Djuma clan, I named a baby hyena, and more.
Yolanda, so you've asked if all penguin species have the cooling gland above their eye, and I am going to have that as an unanswered question for tomorrow. It's a good question because I'm thinking of the penguins in Antarctica and if it would be necessary for them to have a cooling gland. Perhaps it's there. Perhaps there is a thermoregulatory gland above the eye. I can't picture it. I'm picturing the eye of an emperor penguin. I might look in my bird book and have a look. But they wouldn't need to cool down quite as much. So if it's there, it might be greatly reduced and not quite as obvious. I think that if you look at your penguins who are further up in the southern hemisphere, who are in the more subtropical and I guess it would be subtropical environments, then I think that most of your subtropical penguins are likely to have, or temperate to subtropical penguins, rather, would be likely to have that gland above the eye to cool down their bodies. And I can't seem to find, there we go, there's my penguins. Couldn't find them in the bird book. It's not very obvious actually. I'm looking at the, so I'm actually going to stand in front of Jason and see if Jason can get this in the book. Okay, oh, sorry, my shadow is getting in the way. So if you have a look, so we're looking at the Antarctic, the Gen 2 and the chinstrap penguins, and you can see you actually can't see that gland at all. I'm trying very hard to not have my shadow in the shot. Let's see. So I would say based on what we're seeing, that they might not have it, but it could be there and it could be present underneath the feather. So brilliant question, Yolanda. I'm going to go have a look tomorrow and see what I can find. So every time I move my head, I get the shadow in. This is always a tricky time of day light-wise when we get to sort of 2:30. So my guess is that it's more prominent in penguins in warmer climates.
Here at WildEarth, we promised great monthly prizes for our explorers, and this month is no exception. If you join our club before the 10th of July, then you stand a chance to win a fabulous Safari Guide online course brought to you by Bushwise Field Guides. They specialize in accredited Safari Guide training with courses tailored for the African safari lodge industry. Sign up to be a WildEarth explorer today and don't miss out on this life-changing opportunity.
Eddie, you're asking us if it's common to find a lone penguin, and it definitely is. Out at sea, we often see them fishing by themselves. If you see a lone penguin on land away from its colony, then it's likely that that penguin is in a bit of trouble and needs a bit of help. So on land, if you see it, it's not so great, but it is very common to find them out at sea by themselves. So I want to thank you all so much for watching today. We have spent most of today watching African penguins coming back from the sea, and it is a little bit of a slower show, but today what you really got to see is nature in action. A very typical afternoon down here in Stony Point, with the penguins coming in drips and drabs from the ocean and making their way back to the nesting area. I think often we want to see things that are really big and very different. But today we really got to see what this colony was all about, and I hope that you really enjoyed it. On behalf of Jason and I, thank you so much for watching us. We're going to spend our last few moments having a look at the penguins and wondering what they are doing in Djuma. Chris is apparently very excited to be back on drive. And it seems that they have the same plans as we do, just going out into nature and seeing what unfolds. So thank you again, enjoy the rest of your afternoon, and we will see you again here tomorrow.
This program features live coverage of an African safari and may include animal kills and carcasses. Viewer discretion is advised.